There's nothing else more unique than the Nothing phones. Do you agree? Well, at least from the mainstream brands, right? So if you want to stand out, this is definitely the way to go. And the Nothing Phone 3A isn't an exception. It features a familiar design with the same quirky glyph interface, a brighter AMOLED display, a better Snapdragon 7S Gen 3 5G processor, better overall build construction now with an IP64 rating, and most importantly, it now features a triple camera system, which is a first in the Nothing Phone series. Not to mention, it also has a new button for the feature called Essential Space. As usual, in this video, I'll share with you 5 reasons why you should consider the Nothing Phone 3A, and a few things you need to keep in mind before getting one. With that said, let's get into it. As usual, honest disclaimer, this video is not paid, but Digital Walker sent us a review sample for me to share my experience with you. They will not see this video or my script prior to release, and all my thoughts here are from my honest opinion. Now, the first reason why you should consider the Nothing Phone 3A is none other than its design and construction. I like what Nothing did here with the Nothing Phone 3A. They've maintained the streamlined glyph interface design from the Nothing Phone 2A while adding a little bit of twist. It features an aluminum frame with panda glass front and back and boasts an IP64 dust and water resistant. In front, we have a 6.77-inch flexible AMOLED display with up to 120Hz refresh rate and an improved peak brightness of up to 3000 nits with typical brightness of 800 nits. That's 131% more peak brightness than its predecessor. On the left side, we have the volume buttons, and as you can tell, it features flat sides, curved edges and corners with a matte finish. On the other side, we have the power button and a new button called Essential Key that triggers the new feature called Essential Space. More on this later. Up top, we have the secondary microphone, and at the bottom, we have the primary speaker, primary microphone, USB-C port, and the SIM card tray. Now, flipping it at the back, there's no denying the fact that the Nothing Phone 3A's design is absolutely unique and flashy, especially with the glyph LEDs. But the most notable change here is the triple camera system, which, as I alluded to earlier, is the first from the Nothing Phone series. It features a 50-megapixel main camera with OIS, a 50-megapixel telephoto camera with up to 2x optical zoom and 30x ultra zoom. We also have an 8-megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera with a 120-degree field of view, and as for selfies, we have a 32-megapixel selfie camera in front. Overall, time and time again, when it comes to design, if you want to stand out, any Nothing Phone is a compelling option. Now, as mentioned, we still have the glyph interface feature that offers a bunch of utilities such as notifications and ringtones, glyph timer, volume indicator, and a flip to glyph gesture for quickly triggering silent mode. You can also use the LEDs as a flash for shooting photos or as a fill light for shooting videos, alongside the typical flash. So you do have a couple of options here in terms of lighting, which is pretty unique in its own way. Now, the design also allows for this nice glow around the edges, which looks absolutely cool. Now, the second reason why you should consider the Nothing Phone 3A is its decent display. As I alluded to earlier, it features a 6.77-inch Full HD Plus flexible AMOLED display with up to 120Hz refresh rate and an improved peak brightness of up to 3000 nits. This is in HDR mode, by the way. Its typical brightness is from 800 to 1300 nits, which is still better than its predecessor. As you can tell, the colors are super vibrant with good viewing angles, crispy details, and outstanding contrast with deep blacks. And with a Full HD Plus resolution with 387 pixels per inch density, it's great for media consumption. And although it's not an LTPO display, meaning the refresh rate doesn't go all the way down to 1 Hz, it still can dynamically adjust between 60 Hz and 120 Hz depending on application demand and support to optimize battery life. And I'm happy to report that most default apps support 120 Hz for a smoother user interface experience. Speaking of media consumption, while we're at it, here's a quick sound test for the stereo speakers. If you're looking to get your first ever cinematic drone, I highly suggest you go straight to the DJI Flip. The image quality alone is a good reason, especially considering the price. But let me give you 5 reasons why you should consider the DJI Flip and also a bunch of considerations you need to make before spending your hard-earned money. With that said, let's get into it. Moving on, the third reason why you should consider the Nothing Phone 3A is its outstanding software featuring the Nothing OS and the new Essential Space. I honestly believe that the Nothing OS is one of the smoothest and most polished Android operating systems. For starters, while it offers a bunch of unique features such as the glyph interface, the unique Nothing icon pack, and all of its smooth and satisfying animations, it's still relatively close to a stock Android experience. In fact, there are barely any pre-installed apps or bloatware out of the box, giving you a simple, intuitive, and overall great user experience. Browsing through the user interface feels really smooth and snappy with no lags or hiccups whatsoever. It's just a pleasant experience overall, especially for a mid-range phone. And I just thought about it, but it's actually nice that I don't have to uninstall a bunch of pre-installed apps as part of my new phone setup process. Like I said, the animations are super satisfying, and yes, we do have an in-display fingerprint sensor here, which is also quite snappy and accurate. By the way, I've already received a bunch of software updates since I got this phone, and I'm now running the Nothing OS 3.1 based on Android 15. We have 3 years of Android updates with 6 years of security patches, which I believe is pretty decent. Now, as part of the software experience, we also have the new Essential Space feature that you can trigger using the physical Essential key button on the side. At first, I thought it was a camera shutter, but yeah, this is something unique in the smartphone space. Anyways, in a nutshell, it's a glorified screenshot and voice memo button with a dedicated space to keep all your notes, inspirations, and thoughts about basically everything you come across on your screen. It will gather all your data and provide AI-assisted summarization, reminders, and organization. It takes a bit of a learning curve on how to properly take advantage of this, but it's definitely a unique approach. Now, the fourth reason why you should consider the Nothing Phone 3A is the camera system. It's nice to see that Nothing has finally come to their senses and added a dedicated telephoto lens here. The 8-megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera offers a 15mm 120-degree field of view with an okay image quality. As usual, with an 8-megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera, it has a warmer tone compared to the main camera. The 50-megapixel main camera offers a 24mm 84.5-degree field of view, which is still considered a wide angle, and produces a more neutral tone, while the 50-megapixel dedicated telephoto camera offers a 50mm 49.5-degree field of view and produces an even warmer tone than the ultra-wide-angle camera. But what's good about this is that since it's a dedicated telephoto camera and not just an in-sensor zoom from the main camera, the details and resolution are quite outstanding, and even if you zoom in all the way to x4 or 100mm, the image is still pretty decent. And I would say the color tones are quite consistent between these three cameras in different environments. All cameras does a good job balancing the highlights and the shadows for an overall decent dynamic range. But if there's one thing that I really like about this camera system, it's definitely the 50-megapixel telephoto camera. Looking at my gallery, half of the time I was shooting using the telephoto camera, especially when it comes to portrait shots, because it honestly does a good job. As you can tell, the 50-megapixel telephoto camera produces high-quality portraits, and it does a good job recognizing the subject and separating the background with a relatively natural bokeh. The skin tones are on point, and the clarity is something that I really appreciate while still being very natural. I also don't mind the warmer tone. I think it looks pleasing on portraits. Now, the 32-megapixel selfie camera isn't a slouch either. It can also produce pleasing selfies, though I would have to say that it still struggles with edge detection, especially with hair strands and glasses. Now, low-light performance is also pretty decent. The images look well detailed and clean. Now, here's a quick sample videos for you guys. Alright, so this is a selfie video test for the Nothing Phone 3A. This is just in 1080p resolution, but the quality seems to be okay. There you go. So, microphone test as well. Microphone 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, we're going to record in 4K resolution using the back camera. Alright, so this is with the back camera, which is now using the 4K resolution. There you go. And you can also change focal length here, 2x 50mm and 1x 24mm while still recording. There you go. Alright, so the fifth and last reason why you should consider the Nothing Phone 3A is the battery life and overall performance. The Nothing Phone 3A features a still-capable Qualcomm Snapdragon 7S Gen 3 with an Adreno 710 GPU, 12GB of RAM with 256GB of internal storage. The RAM is automatically extended using the available internal storage for a total of 20GB out of the box. My sample got a score of 830,018 in an Antutu benchmark, which is right around the specified result. And as I pointed out earlier, performance is not an issue on the smartphone, especially partnered with the highly optimized Nothing OS 3.1. With that said, here are the rest of the benchmarks that I ran on the Nothing Phone 3A. For gaming in Genshin Impact, by default, the graphics quality is set to lowest, but even if I bump it to highest, it still performs pretty decent. I barely experience any major or noticeable hiccups. The same can be said for Wuthering Waves. By default, it is set to balance, but even if I set it to the high settings, I was still able to play relatively smoothly. It also doesn't heat up much, which is nice for longer gaming sessions. Battery life is also another thing that I'm impressed with the Nothing Phone 3A, considering that it only has 5,000 mAh of capacity. Some mid-range phones nowadays have 6,000 mAh, but even with that, the Nothing Phone 3A still lasted a whopping 21 hours in my usual PC Mark Work 3.0 battery life benchmark with 50% brightness and volume level. So yeah, it can easily last you a day or two. I was also able to charge it from 10% to 100% in just over an hour, which I think is pretty decent. So yeah, overall, the Nothing Phone 3A offers a good balance between aesthetics and performance, providing stunning design, optimized software, and capable hardware. And it's nice that it's unique inside and out. As for the things that you need to keep in mind before pulling the trigger, first, I'm honestly quite sad that the ultra-wide-angle camera has been downgraded to 8 megapixel compared to the 50 megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera of the Nothing Phone 2A. So if you like taking landscape shots, you might want to keep that in mind. Also, only the rear camera supports 4K video recording. The selfie camera can only shoot 1080p. So if you're a content creator, that's another thing to consider. Another thing is that the essential key is annoyingly near the power button, and I've mistakenly pressed it more than I would like, which is quite frustrating sometimes. It may be a user error, but still. Also, you cannot customize the function of the essential key without using any third-party tools. Other than that, the Nothing Phone 3A, again, like I said, is a very compelling option if you want to stand out without compromising much on performance and overall user experience. And there you have it, guys. Thank you for watching. Huge thanks to Digital Walker for sending this in. Again, this video is not paid and they will not see this video prior to release. I'll put some links below if you're interested. Now, if you're looking for another great option, you can watch my review of the OnePlus 13 and OnePlus 13R by clicking this. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you appreciate this video, and see you next time. Have a great day, guys. As always, you're awesome.